to the Learning Clinic on CKLU 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Bob Kirwan, and we are ready to go with our show this afternoon. Ron Dupuis, who is running for the position of mayor in the city of Greater Sudbury in our October election, he is in the studio with me. And we've got things set up, and we're going to take whatever like the time it takes to talk about the election, Ron. So welcome to CKLU.
Thank you, Bob. It's great to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no, it's great. I know you're well aware that what we're trying to do at CKLU is give all of the candidates an opportunity to come in and talk about the issues and their particular positions on their platforms, and try and educate people who are in the area, who are going to be voting, on the issues as well as the candidates. So, Ron, we're kind of open. Let's just start talking. You decided to run for mayor, but you've been a councillor, you've been involved in local politics for forever, for a long time.
It has been quite a while. I was elected for my 5th term, which means that at the end of this year, it will be my 17th year. And just what got me involved in politics was the fact that I've always been passionate about politics. I love politics of all kinds. We've always had interesting discussions when I was with my grandparents, my uncles, my parents, and it's something that was bred into me, and I've always worked on campaigns. I remember working for a number of people who were elected over the years. As a young man, I started going to my first campaign at 12 years of age. So you can see that I've been involved in politics for a very long time. And what got me started in municipal politics was the fact that in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, then the town of Valley East was proposing to close all their playgrounds because of a serious tragic accident that happened at one of the parks. And I couldn't see that happening. A playground is part of the fabric of a community, so I decided that I would run for council, and lo and behold, I got elected. And ever since then, I haven't looked back. I'm excited about these elections coming up, and I think it's going to be great for our city.
And you know, I can, I guess, identify with the need for recreation because I think you moved to the Valley in 1970. The reason I remember 1972 is that's the year that my wife and I got married, and we came to the Valley in 1974. So the two of us have been around the Valley for a long time, and one of the things that we can quite well remember is just how important those community playgrounds were to the areas as they were growing up. I can remember, and I'm sure you can, because you're heavily involved with the Kin Club and their playground in Blizzard Valley. That was a community center. It really was a neighborhood community center, and I think that's an important part of the community. So it's really interesting that was kind of the motivation for you to get involved, because I think, personally, I think it's important that, you know, whoever's going to get involved, they have to make a decision based on who they are and what they feel is important to their community, and you've been around ever since then.
Sure have. I also got married in 1972, Bob, and
there you go.
I'll be celebrating my anniversary tomorrow.
Tomorrow, wow.
Yeah. Anyways, just in regards to that, I moved to the Valley in September of '72, and it was probably the best place to raise a child. Was Valley East. I just always loved the area. I remember when I was younger and playing for O'Connor Park, and we used to play hockey against Guillettville and McCrae Heights, and every little community had their own playground associations. They had their own hockey teams. They did all kinds of things for their playground association. So it was just truly amazing. And today, well, the playgrounds, there's no playground leagues anymore except in Sudbury proper. But in the Valley, we play in the arenas and so on, and we're so fortunate to have so many arenas and to be able to utilize them.
Yeah. your decision now, and it's almost as if it's, the time is there for you to take it to the next level from being a ward councillor. And I'm amazed at how much Ward 5 has grown. Ward 5 is really a core ward in the city. So now we're looking at taking over a position where you are more or less a facilitator and a coordinator for the other 12 councillors. So some of your priorities, some of the things that you feel are really front and center moving forward.
Well, just, I will expand on what you stated about Ward 5. Those things don't come by accident.
No.
You know, you have to have meetings, and I have weekly meetings with developers and staff, and we just go over things and try to come up with any kind of assistance we can when we lure a developer into our area. So it's something that is ongoing constantly. It's a lot of work, a lot of meetings, but at the end of the day, it's definitely worth it, because you just look at the size of the homes and what is being built in the valley. It's just phenomenal, and I'm truly excited about that, you know, attracting new businesses and everything else. It's all part of the process, but again, it demands a lot of your time to do this and to meet with developers. As far as for the position of mayor, I've worked under 5 different mayors, and I can tell you that I have definitely learned a lot from all 5 of those mayors, and you know, starting with John Robert in the valley, and then Jim Gordon at Amalgamation, and then Dave Courtamache, and then John Rodriguez and Marianne Matichuk. I've watched them, I've learned, I met with most of them regularly to see what kind of direction they needed for my ward, and I was hoping to convince them to help me in special projects, like when I go to Toronto to meet with Canadian Tire and get them to come to Valley East, and meeting with Sears Real Estate, and so on. So it was all part of the process, but again, you need direction from the mayor in order to help you grow these projects. If the mayor is not committed to it, then it's very difficult to get anything done. When we look at a council, and you know, you have 13 people that are A characters that are elected,
Yeah.
okay? You have to be a mediator, you have to be a leader, and you have to have confidence in the people that were elected. So you have to make sure that whether you agree on one thing or another is not the important thing. The important fact is that at the end of the day, a decision is made by the majority of council, and that is what you have to respect. But as a mayor, you can certainly go to your councillors and talk to them and find a pulse for whatever you're going to be discussing and whatever decision you're going to make. But a mayor has to be a leader. A mayor has to be able to make sure that the 12 other people sitting around that table are working as a team, are working in unison for what we were all elected for, and that is the betterment of our community, to improve the quality of life of our residents. So that's where your major role is.
Yeah, no, I can see it. Like, what you're talking about in terms of what you did as a Ward 5 councillor, there's an awful lot of activity that you're involved in that is for the betterment of Ward 5. But I look at it from the point of view that if each of the any of the individual wards improve themselves, then it's an improvement of the overall community itself. Any little improvement improves the overall. It doesn't take away from the rest of it. But as you've got 12 councillors who are focusing on their areas as well as thinking about the good of, like the common good of the city, I can see where the mayor's role has to be one of viewing things from the top of the mountain and seeing how things are developing and kind of working with the strengths of each of the individual councillors to make everything move forward toward the ultimate vision. What is our ultimate vision?
Well, if you...
Do we have a few hours?
If you ask 50,000 different people what the ultimate vision is, you're gonna get 50,000 different answers.
Yeah.
So Very difficult to pinpoint that and say this is one vision.
Right.
My vision of Sudbury, of Greater Sudbury, is, for one thing, to be a unified city, to be a city that is prospering, to be a leader for Northern Ontario, to make sure that all our citizens are heard, that they have a voice at City Hall. Over the last little while, we can honestly say that it seems that that voice has gone. It's not there anymore. So we have to bring that back. We have to open up City Hall. We have to make sure that the ward councillors are back to basics. We have to make sure that the community embraces the ward councillors. They are, in all honesty, the mayor of that ward.
Right.
We used to have 7 mayors and a regional chair. So, that's what it boils down to. Again, what is good, as you stated, what is good for one part of the city is good for the whole city. And if it's good for Sudbury, it's good for Northern Ontario, because everybody benefits from it. I do want to do a lot of different things, and just the fact that we are going to have a high turnover of council this term.
It looks like it.
There's going to be people that are not running, there's going to be people who are going to be defeated, there are some councillors who will be back. But if we stop and think about that, the way council works is, the elections are on October 27th, your term of office only begins on December the 1st. So you've got the whole month of November where, the councillors, young, new, old, are all raring to go, and they want to make sure that everything gets started. So one of the things that I will be bringing forward is, I would like to hold training sessions for the month of November. We don't have, as a councillor, part of your training, you don't have the police coming in to talk to you. So one evening, we're going to get the police to come in, explain what the role of council is vis-a-vis the police, and have the police tell us what they do, how the budget works, and so on. And there's going to be a NORD chart so that the new councillors will know who to call when there's something specific to policing. We're going to have the Greater Sudbury Utilities come in, because that is a complex corporation, and one that everybody needs to understand. We're going to have the health unit come in and tell us how come Sudbury is responsible for 80% of the budget, when the other municipalities, all the way to Manitoulin Island and Killarney and the French River and St. Charles, Marksday Warren, are responsible for 20. It's all population based. But again, everybody has to understand how these departments work. We're going to hear from, all of our key stakeholders in our community, the United Way, the Chamber of Commerce. We're going to have media sessions so that councillors are comfortable when they're asked to do an interview. I'm hoping to do all of that, and then on December the 1st, when the term starts, we are able to get up and run, and we'll be confident in what we have learned. The way it works now, we get one Saturday morning where everybody comes in, speaks to you for 10 minutes, and that's it for that department. So it's very difficult to absorb everything in that length of time, and to have only a short presentation makes it even harder for a councillor to comprehend everything that needs to be done.
Yeah, so you would think a training session like that would work before you even register to run.
Exactly, just to make you aware.
Because, yeah, and I think more knowledge and education of the general public as to what the role of the council members are is important too, because so many people think that councillors can do things that they cannot, and that then leads into a lot of criticism and misunderstanding. But it's like anything else too, you can provide the education if people aren't going to listen. But you're right, people that are going to be stepping into that role on December 1st would definitely be motivated to learn. I mean, that's the right time to do the teaching. That sounds like a good plan.
The other thing I want to do, Bob, is on January 1st, we're going to plan as a council our strategic vision for the next 4 years. And how we're going to do that is, we're going to go into every community within Greater Sudbury. We're going to meet with the residents. There's going to be it's a town hall meeting where the residents are going to tell council what their priorities are for the next 4 years. It's not going to be staff telling us, it's not going to be council telling the public what their priorities are. It's going to be the public telling us what they want to see us accomplish in the next 4 years. So by doing that, it's gonna take us about 3 months to get to every community, aside from all the other meetings we're going to have and so on. But it's very worthwhile. I said we would be giving Greater Sudbury back its voice, and that's one of the ways we're going to be doing that, is by listening to what they have to say. So that's going to have an influence on us. It's going to have an impact on how we're going to make our decisions for the next 4 years, and where our strat plan is going to be, because we're going to combine our ideas, we're going to combine staff's ideas, we're going to combine the public's ideas, and we're going to meld that into 4 or 5 priorities that need to be done and that people are wanting us to do.
And that would be formulating, I guess, a big picture concept. Actually, it makes sense to do it after the election as well, because you remove all of the politics from that meeting. Whereas I guess if you do it during the election campaign, people are constantly telling candidates what their priorities are, but it's in the midst of an election campaign, so now you're getting into debating one side or the other. I guess once you know who's going to be representing you for 4 years, it makes a little more sense to say, well, here are our priorities, and there's no politics to this at all. These are the true priorities we're looking at. I think that's a good plan. Are these going to be, are these protocols going to be decided on prior to the election, so that it's going to happen regardless of who is in, or is it basically depend? Is that one of the leadership roles of there?
It is a leadership role of the mayor, and it's something that I am stating publicly, and it's something that I know that most of the councillors that I have spoken to and most of the candidates that I have spoken to agree that this is the proper format to proceed. So I really believe that, you know, when you run for as a ward councillor, when you run for an MP, MPP, or you run for mayor, or everybody runs for the same reason. They want to make our community better. The unfortunate thing is that there are ways to work with people, and there are ways that you shouldn't work in a sense that you isolate yourself from others.
Sometimes you just make a mistake.
And you know what? That happens. And you know, there's nobody perfect. And I haven't met a perfect counselor yet. I can tell you that that is something that we all learn. And politics have changed so drastically over the last 17 years. I can honestly tell you, when you look at the print media and the bloggers and everything else, you're under so much scrutiny.
Oh.
And I mean, if the weather is cold, it's councillors' fault. If it's hot, councillors get blamed. You know, and they get blamed for everything. And that's fair game. I mean, we accept that, and we still choose to run and lead a public life, and we have to accept the criticism. Sometimes you have to bite your tongue, and sometimes you have to say, my gosh, that's not what happened at the meeting, and that is not what I said. But, you know, people understand what they understand, and unfortunately, that is one of the pitfalls of today's politics, is somebody that has anonymously writes some things that are very unfair and not justified, and just throws it out there, and then bang, it just snowballs and everything else. But again, if people are a lot more informed today than they were 10 years ago, than they were 5 years ago, and that is a good thing. People are taking more of an interest, and proof of that is the amount of people that are running in this election.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of candidates that are putting their names forward, and there's going to be a lot more.
There's going to be a lot more, I know.
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about the being in the public eye and the criticism. When you take a look at everything in perspective, there's a small number of people who are making the noise. who are being critical, and I don't begrudge them for expressing their opinions, but I think for the most part, the majority of people do not believe that a person running for city council wants to do a bad job, wants to do it for the wrong reason. Everybody who puts their name in for this, if they have any idea of what this involves, knows that you wouldn't subject yourself to this for any reason other than a legitimate community-based reason, because there's nothing to be gained. I don't think there's anything to be gained that would not be positive for the community. It's just that so many people, after a certain period of time in their life, say it's time for me to step forward. It's my time.
Well, and that's exactly why you touched on it earlier when you stated, after so many years on council, it's time to, it's time for me to do something. Either I leave politics or I run for mayor. And believe me, I did a lot of soul searching for both. I really think I'm at a stage in my life, I'm still young, I'm 62 years old. I have a lot of
just a kid compared to me.
Yeah, I have a lot of good years left in me, and I want to spend them productively. You mentioned about it's a small minority. Well, one of the things I learned from Jim Gordon, who was probably the most astute politician I've ever seen. Jim Gordon always used to tell us, listen to the silent majority. And that is something that I've always adhered to. I think it makes a lot of sense when you know what people are thinking, and it's if there's a loud minority, that's fine, but the thing is, you've got to listen to the other part, and the other part are telling you something by their silence. So it's great that people are vocal. It's great that as a public figure you are recognized, and people come up to you, and no matter what ward you live in, or no matter what ward they live in, you're a councillor and they're going to come and tell you their problems, whether it's at Metro or Food Basics or Independent or at church or in a restaurant when you're having a meal with your family. They're going to come up to you and talk to you. They want to talk to you. They want you to listen.
Yep. And I think my sons were all involved in hockey refereeing, and my youngest son, who's a police officer now, was in the OHL refereeing, and I got the message across to him early in his career. I used to tell him, no matter how whatever you hear from the stands, the people who are complaining, the people who are yelling, when you walk out of the dressing room and you're walking through the lobby, or you're going to stand there and you're going to watch the next game, people all want to talk to the referee. They all want to come up. They all want to say that they know you. They all want to share their opinion, but they're not critical. And so when you think about the silent majority, it's like you're going to hear the vocal ones. Yeah, it's going to affect you because you're human. But when you go out into the lobby as a referee, people all want to come up and talk to you, and they're friendly. And most of the time they're going to tell you did a good job. I may have yelled at you, but you did a good job. And I think when you take a look at politics, I think of politics as being precisely that. Every decision you make, there's going to be people in favor, there's going to be people against it. And you just have to make sure you're making the decisions for the right reason. But you got to remove the personal hurt, I guess, out of there. It must be tough on family, though. The family members probably, they may not have that armor built up. And I think that's where it gets tough. When your family is hearing these things, and your relatives are hearing these things, it hurts them more than it hurts you. So that's a real tough, I think that's a lesson that all politicians should be aware of before they get into this.
But most definitely, Bob, it does affect family, and one of the things I try to minimize at our house is that we don't discuss politics. Okay, I will discuss politics with my wife and my sons and my daughter if it's a one-on-one, but I have 3 adult children and I've got 6 grandchildren, and my grandchildren, some of them are teenagers, and it bothers them when people criticize, especially when they know what I do and how much time it takes away from your family and so on. But at the end of the day, I tell them, if something bothers you, then don't read it.
Right.
Okay, don't listen to it. That's the bottom line. My skin was very thin when I started this process, and it's still not as thick as it should be, because it does bother me when I see something and I say, my gosh, like, that is not my intention at all. And it all goes back to a matter of interpretation or something, and that's fine, but you're best to not respond to criticism like that. Just let it ride, and you know the decision you make. I have to look at myself in the mirror every morning, and you know what? There are days when you say, okay, maybe I screwed up last night.
Yeah.
But again, it's a decision you made based on the information you have.
Yeah.
And our decisions are made, and again, it's an educated decision. It's an informed decision. We have a lot of reports. We have to rely on the information contained in those reports to tell us exactly the facts and the truth. If we don't get that, then it's hard for us to make an accurate decision. But at the end of the day, again, the responsibility falls on us, and those are the decisions that we make.
I know. It's I know it's an interesting tightrope to walk. We're going to take a quick break and come back. And when we come back, maybe we can talk about some of the specific priorities that you see that have been rising to the surface in the area over for the last few years, and we can talk possibly about some of the maybe some of the specific ideas or the general ideas that you have in mind moving forward. A lot of people are saying we have to change a lot of things. Change is good if it's for the right reason. Redirection possibly, recognizing what's important. Those are things that are all coming up as people are talking in preparation for the election. And I know as a candidate for mayor, you really have to take a look at the big pictures where I, for example, as an individual ward candidate, might look at the recreation fees for the Howard Armstrong Center because they're directly affecting my area. Your overall view as a mayor, I guess, may take on a little bit broader scope, but when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit about that. So stay tuned with us. We'll be back in about 5 minutes, and we'll continue with Ron Dupuis, who's candidate for the position of mayor for the city of Greater Sudbury on the Learning Clinic Meet the Candidates radio show.
Half an hour already. Hey? What's it happening?
I want to welcome you back to the Learning Clinic on CKU 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Bob Kirwan, and we're going to continue our conversation with Ron Dupuis, who's running for the position of mayor of the city of Greater Sudbury in the 2014 election. Ron, we had a lot of conversation, kind of, background information and discussion of almost like philosophy of politics for a while. Let's get into some of the specifics that you have in the back of your mind for moving forward or improving or changing. We're not looking at criticizing what's gone on in the past because you've been part of it, but I know that obviously there's always change that has to be made in order to grow. So where are we now? What do we have to do in the future? And without getting into all of the different things, because we could be here all night, what do you think are some of the things that have been rising to the top?
Well, there's a number of things that need to be addressed in the next term of council and in the future. Of course, our roads, I understand, I drive the same roads as everybody else. I know potholes exist throughout the city, but it's not unique to Sudbury. I was in Saskatoon last summer, and the #1 priority for the residents there was potholes.
Okay.
The second priority for them was getting a new $120 million police station. Okay, so those are priorities in other cities, and each city has got a unique set of priorities. And with us, I know that a lot of people are talking about the casino, a lot of people are talking about a performing arts center, a lot of people are talking about a new arena. Well, those are all things that definitely need to be addressed, but again, at what cost?
Right.
So we have to look at that. We are doing a plan, a feasibility plan on arenas and what we're going to do with our arenas. Well, as mayor, I can honestly tell you that closing down an arena such as the one in Lavac or anywhere else within our community is like tearing the guts out of a community.
It's like closing a school.
Pardon me?
It's like closing a
It
school.
is, and those are the foundations that make a community. And if you take that away from them, then definitely you're causing a lot of angst amongst the residents. And I admire the people of Onaping Falls for what they're doing for their arena. They're doing all kinds of fundraising so that they can buy ice time so that the arena will remain open. And that is great. I commend them for that. I can honestly tell you, I've been there so many times. I used to play hockey there. I know what it's like. So our arena plan is going along, and we know that we need a bigger arena, a bigger venue to attract the major concerts, to attract big events, such as the Briar and so on. But those are things that we can accomplish without using taxpayers' money. We can get a new arena built. We don't have a say into the management aspect. We just bring people here and we tell them, okay, build the arena, this is the land, we've got to form a partnership, so we give them land or whatever needs to be done in order to get them to come here. But at the end of the day, it will be self-supporting by the private partnership that we are gonna have. So a new arena is definitely something that is in the plans. An arts center, we need an arts center. We need somebody who is passionate about the arts to come in and run for council. We do not have that perspective around the council table. We need somebody who just is so passionate about the arts that they're willing to run for council and represent the arts community around the council table. We need people who are passionate about all kinds of things to run for council so that we have different perspectives around the table. We have people who are passionate about roads, we have people who are passionate about the environment. Well, it's time that we have people such that represent these organizations step forward, because it's all something we need around the council table. Some of my priorities, we hear about a casino. Well, if a casino is going to come in to Sudbury and give us all the amenities we need, such as an arts center, such as a convention center, such as a big hotel downtown and everything else, then all of more power to it. But if we're not gonna get all of those amenities, then our casino should stay right where it is.
So casino, just for the sake of a casino, is not
No,
good plan.
it's not good planning, and it's not something we need. If we have all of the amenities that go with it, then it's a bonus for us, and it's not costing the taxpayers anything. And just think of the tax revenues that would be generated from something like that. I think we need to work with our youth. I'm going to form a youth advisory panel. I know how successful this has been with the police services, and I know it can be just as successful with a community youth advisory panel that's going to tell us what their needs are, that's going to tell us what they want our city to be like in 20 years when they are parents and they are contributing to with their taxes. We have to listen to our youth. We have such bright young people in our community, and if they're not asked for their opinion, they won't give it. You have to ask. I wanna meet regularly with real estate people. I want them to be able to tell us what our shortcomings are in different areas of the city, what our strengths and weaknesses. Because if somebody moves into Greater Sudbury now, they're going to go to a real estate agent and say, okay, they're gonna present them with a list of what they want. And they have a pulse of what people want when they're moving into Greater Sudbury, or when they're moving from one community to another. So who better to ask for than them? I think it's a tremendous asset that we have, and it's one that we should be looking at for advice. There's so many other little things, and I will be developing my platform. Most of it is developed, but I will be releasing it bit by bit. There's so many things that we can do. We are the hub of Northern Ontario. We are the capital of Northern Ontario when it comes to education, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to retail, when it comes to mining expertise. There's nobody can offer what we do. We have, people who are willing to work. We have people that are available in any trade you can think of that are willing to do what it takes to get a permanent job, a well-paying job. We owe it to our citizens to attract that type of industry here.
What I'm hearing, and what I've personally mentioned to people that ask what my position is on certain things, I've tried to explain to them that I would rather have a group of 13 people sitting around the table who would say, our position is to make the best decision based on the information we've got at hand on any issue that comes up, and not coming in there with a set idea that it doesn't matter what information we get, we're voting this way. And I think what you basically described is the protocol for making sure that the information that you have in front of you when you're making a decision is the best information that you can make the decision on. I'm sure that it's obvious that sometimes you change your mind when new information comes forward. That if you would have had that information prior to making the decision, you would have made a different decision. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I worry when I hear people saying, this is my platform on this issue and I'm never gonna change it. I get frightened when I hear people saying that, because in this day and age, we have so many outside influences and so many factors coming into play that it's so hard for anyone to even know what their position is going to be on certain issues a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. But at least if you have this mindset that you're gathering on, it's a way of gathering the information so that as you're moving forward, the decisions you make at least are bringing you toward that common vision. To me, I think that's what it's all about. It sounds as if that's what you're describing. You really haven't been specific on any particular thing, but it's, what, hey, if we can get the casino owner to provide us with some of these other things we need, makes sense. If we can't, doesn't make sense. To me, I think I guess that must be part and parcel with the difference between a person who is on a ward seat as opposed to the mayor, but at the same time, even in a ward situation, it's hard to make a decision on specific items, because you may go to council and the other 3 or 4 people may give you information that will change your mind. So it's tough.
And that happens.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. And you can't go in there with a preconceived notion. What you've got to go in first of all, we get our agendas and our minutes on a Wednesday night for the following week. So a typical week for me is on Wednesday night, I get my mail, I glance at correspondence that I need to address, I put it in a pile, I read my minutes that night. I don't do anything with the minutes or with my agendas, I just read them, okay? On Friday night, coming home from a Wolves game,
Right.
You can't sleep because you're frustrated and
Or happy.
and everything else. So I reread my minutes and my agenda, and then I make notes. This happens on the Friday night. So I make notes as to what staff I got to call on Monday to get further clarification on certain points of the report that is before me. So on the Monday, I call staff and everything else. On the Monday night, I review my agenda. Tuesday night, I have council, I've got my notes, I've got my questions answered. And if it's a question that I've asked that I feel the public needs to know, I will re-ask that question of the staff so that they can explain why they made certain statements or why a certain decision is what they are recommending. Just to, again, inform people. Very critical that we do that. So, you know, there's a lot of reading to be done as a counselor. There's a lot of meeting with staff. It's done by emails or by phone calls or in person. But at the end of the day, a counselor has to be comfortable in knowing that the decision they're going to make is going to be what they think is right. And you have to listen to what everybody has to say, because we have some very bright people around the council table, and they can certainly enlighten you, and they can certainly bring forward different points of views that will make you think and could sway you to another. So that's why an open mind is critical.
It also must require a lot of impromptu discussions with residents at the coffee shops or in the grocery stores or at community events where as you are sitting there making your decision, you have to be pretty confident that the decision you're making is going to be supported by the people that voted you to represent them, because you are their voice. And so on top of all of that, I would imagine all councillors have to really get involved with their community if they are going to be able to say they're speaking for their community.
There's no doubt. Just to give you an example, the construction work around the LaSalle Notre Dame intersection, okay? That was a very controversial issue with some of the residents that live in the area, some of the businesses that are in the area.
Right.
And you can, believe it or not, we have had over 20 public meetings for that intersection. Every time there were changes, I felt the public had to be notified that, hey, we're doing something different now. So we have to let them know what our intentions are and why we're adding another lane, or why we're doing things the way they are, why the road is raised, and there's a possibility of flooding in some of their driveways and everything. So these are all issues that are very close to people, and they have to understand and they have to know why we're doing what we're doing. So every time there were changes, and the co-op funeral home, we took away 21 feet off of LaSalle Boulevard, off of their frontage. You think that wasn't controversial? But look at the intersection now, it is absolutely great. I remember when we were adding a 5th lane from Main Street all the way to McCrae Heights, and how people were just up in arms about that. But today, there's nothing better than to see dozens of people walking on those sidewalks and being happy, and that center turning lane, being able to turn into their driveways without the fear of being rear-ended. The things that have happened are for a reason. In Ward 5, we're going to have, again, another major project that's going to be started soon, and that is the intersection of Main and Highway 69 North. And, we're going to go up to Cecile Street and widen the road and resurface it and put sidewalks, and there's a lot of things that have to be done. One of the things that the city has been negligent is the lack of trails that connect one community to another, the lack of bicycle trails that connect all of the outlying areas to Sudbury. We have to work on those. There's nothing more, healthier than to see somebody riding their bike into Sudbury. We have 3 people who live in Valcairn who walk to Sudbury to work downtown every single day, whether it's raining, it's minus 30 degrees or anything. These 3 individuals, I applaud them, and it's just amazing to see them walk day in and day out, in the morning and at night going home. We have people who ride to work at Laurentian University here, and they live in Flake subdivision, and they live in Sunnyside. So that's what a community is, and that's what we need to build.
Well, I think when you take a look at the demographics too, aren't the statistics close to 40% of the people are 55 and over living in Sudbury? It's close to 40%, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to them, walking and biking take a top priority to skating and playing football, soccer. So I mean, you're right. I mean, those are things that, and really they're not that costly. It's just a matter of putting the infrastructure, and it's not real expensive infrastructure because you've got volunteers who are passionate about doing this. So I agree. It's nobody's going to argue with the results of the corner of LaSalle and Notre Dame. They complained, I was one of them, about the interference of the driving when the construction was on. But now I don't think you have to wait more than 2 lights at any time of day to get through. Yeah, there's some pain when you're pulling a tooth. There's going to be a little bit of pain to get the tooth pulled, but at the end of the day, you're much healthier for it.
When we're talking about the LaSalle Notre Dame intersection, and we added a couple of lanes of traffic, and we took away a lot of property, but at the end of the day, I knew we would have issues, and so did the residents, with the snow. Because where do you store the snow now? I mean, there's no room left.
Mm-hmm.
The driveways are very short, and so that was an issue this winter, and we had to remove the snow, at least once, and we had a terrific amount of snow. But again, those are concerns that were valid, and people have to be listened to.
Well, what's interesting, when we talk about the big picture, is if you don't have any place to put your snow, that to that homeowner is more important than the casinos and the art centers and the arenas. Like, that is their priority. And I think you're right, as counselors and as government leaders, we have to understand that when we get a phone call from somebody, to them, that's the most important thing in their life right now. Doesn't matter if we're thinking about the big picture. To them, the way we handle that issue with them is critical. It's huge.
And rightfully so.
Yeah. It's over there.
We have to provide people with safe access and egress from their property. And that is part of our mandate. It's something we need to do, and it's something that we need to understand, that when somebody calls us, we're able to act on that and make sure that it is done.
Mm-hmm. Or at least let them know that we're trying. We're trying. We're doing what we can. What about public meetings? Because one of the interesting things about public meetings is you can schedule public meetings and you can call public meetings all you want. But generally there's so few people that attend the public meetings that it's that silent majority that is not there that you also have to be concerned about. How do you, and this is a sincere question, how does a person deal with that when you're involved in politics? Because you're providing the opportunity for information, but if people don't come, how do you move forward and get the information out?
It's fairly easy. The minute you announce that you're gonna have a public meeting regarding a specific issue, the emails will start coming in.
Okay.
The phone calls, and then when you go to attend a public meeting, I always try to, I'm not the one that is going to be the main spokesperson for the city. I'm there to listen to what people have to say, to take notes, and to make sure that staff are hearing what the people are saying, so that we are, going to make, again, an informed decision based on what people are telling us. People are not shy about sending an email or making a phone call, but they are shy about speaking up publicly in front of their neighbors, because they may agree with the city, they may not agree with the city, but they don't want to be seen, they're not comfortable.
Right.
And I totally agree with them. I don't mind that at all. I really enjoy the fact that people are using a lot more emails now, so at 11 o'clock you can reply to an email and get it done right away, versus You can't make a phone call.
Can't make a phone call 11 o'clock, no.
But the-
So that's good, okay, honestly, I wasn't aware of it. So a lot of what takes place at a public meeting, you're receiving prior to and after the public meeting.
Oh, yes.
So you're getting the feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And it's up to you to follow up with people to make sure
Mhm.
that, they have been heard, and to make sure that staff, because after a public meeting, you meet with staff and you go over some of the issues, some of the comments that were made, some of the emails you've received, and you try to meld that, and then you get staff to say, okay, listen, these are the concerns, how are we going to address them?
Okay.
Okay.
Good, well, that's really good. I mean, budget and fiscal responsibility is always, probably one of the least desirable things that you have to work on, but I guess in a way municipalities are really behind the eight ball, because an awful lot of the money that we get locally is really controlled, it's beyond our control, isn't it?
Well,
We can't get into the budget, but,
no, and, that is a very fair question, and is one that I was hoping you would bring up, a topic you would bring up. The transfers from the province are not what they used to be. So, prior to amalgamation, and it's funny that everything that happened around
it's a
amalgamation,
turning point.
the province decided, okay, we're not gonna pay for this, we're not gonna pay for this, and it's up to the municipalities to pay for it. One of the biggest challenges that we as a municipality have, besides our roads, is our public housing. Okay, these homes are getting along in age. They were built quite a few decades ago, and the province downloaded everything to us. Now, here we are, we're gonna be stuck with capital investments on some of these homes that are going to mean substantial amount of money to be spent, amount of repairs to be made. We're maintaining them as we go along, but you can only put Band-Aids on them for so long and you're gonna have to replace a lot of things, a lot of these houses. That is going to cost us huge amounts of money, and we're not gonna get any assistance. So we have to start planning for that. I sit on the Housing Corporation, and I'm telling you, that was the only committee that I hadn't sat on, and I'm so glad that I'm there, because it really is an eye-opener. And again, they're cautioning us, let's start getting ready for this. So we have to make sure that council is aware of what is gonna be facing us in 5 and 10 years and in 20 years. And what needs to be done now, so that people in 5 or 10 or 20 years are not getting huge tax increases. As far as the budget goes, the budget takes a lot of your time. You get a binder, and the binder is filled, you can't put another sheet in it, but then again, you get every time there's a budget meeting, you get all kinds of other material and information that you need to.
So if you didn't like math before, you're not gonna like it after.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's true. But, when we look at things, and you look at a $500 million budget, annual budget, you say, my gosh, we should be able to find some savings in it. And I've always, on an annual basis, I challenge staff to drop 5% from their budget. And it doesn't get it's not the will of council. And I respect that, that's fine. Maybe I'm not making my sales pitch the way it should be. So I keep trying to refine it year after year. But I can honestly tell you that is something that I will be bringing up again. I'm not asking them to cut snow plowing by 5%, but just their overall budget. There's gotta be room in there to cut 5%. If there isn't, then we have problems.
Yeah, that makes a big difference on $500 million.
Well, it's significant, you know what, and then we'd be able to absorb a lot of the things that are recommended and so on. There's so many things to look at when it comes to budget, and we have got a finance staff that works so hard. They're understaffed, but you know what? They are committed to their job, and they love what they do, and thank God we have them, because it's not an easy position to be in.
And it doesn't sound as if it's gonna get any easier with the downloading and the responsibilities on the local taxpayer. It's almost as if the province and the federal government are adopting a user pay approach. That if you wanna live in a municipality, you pay for your living in that municipality. Which again is not fair, because there's so many municipalities that have difficulty generating revenue. Which I guess leads possibly into another topic, economic growth and development. I can remember when, before amalgamation, we had a lot of talk in the valley about how to grow the economic base of the valley. And I remember when we built the Howard Armstrong Recreation Center, one of the reasons was, by having a center like that, you're gonna attract more people to live in the valley, you're gonna attract more businesses. If you didn't have that center to attract people, then they'd go elsewhere. So how do we do this on a greater Sudbury basis? Because if we are the hub of Northern Ontario, we should, do you think we're attracting as many businesses and factories as we can?
You know, we are definitely attracting our share, for sure. Could we do more? Yes. You know, once the 4-laning of Highway 69 South is finished, it's going to be almost like a 3.5 hour drive from Toronto to Sudbury.
It's 4 hours to Brampton from our driveway right now.
So this is something that is going to be advantageous to us. We have, our industrial parks are growing everywhere. Like, you know, we'll take Valley East, for example. We're into a third phase in the industrial park there. We've purchased another 40 acres, and there's already some of those lots that have been sold. When we looked at the industrial lands, we didn't want to make money off of that. We just wanted to attract businesses, attract jobs. And that's why it was so successful. The Walden Industrial Park. I mean, my gosh, there's a huge success story there. It's on the Trans-Canada Highway. People want to establish there. They're close to the mines. They're close to everything. Fielding Park is another park, industrial park that is just, you know, it's booming. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Economic development is something that we're going to be promoting forever and ever. We can never get enough. It's always something that we have to pride ourselves in. The tourism aspect. We have to work on attracting tourism from within Canada. You know, a few years ago we were told that the province of Quebec was the province that visited other provinces the most. And we need to capitalize on that to make sure that they come to a municipality, to Sudbury, where we are, you know, we have a lot of people who are francophone, and we have a lot to offer to them. You know, and retail is certainly going to be up. There's going to be stores coming in, and it's going to, all they want to do is establish in Sudbury because of what is here already, the infrastructure we have in place, the affordability of the lands, the fact that people are shopping here, people are, you know, working here. They can get qualified workforce in no time at all. So, you know, just to give you an example, a few years ago, there's a store that opened in the Power Center on the Kingsway, and one of my questions to them is always, you know, what brought you to Sudbury? And this Canadian president of this chain store said, we have 54 stores across Canada. 47 of our managers applied for the manager's job in Sudbury.
Wow.
So our quality of life means a lot to them, and that's, you know, you're in Toronto and you're renting a house or you own a home, and yet you come to Sudbury, and the manager of that particular store had bought a house in Cape Real, and he couldn't believe what a beautiful house he had gotten in Cape Real, and he's only 25 minutes away.
He says he's only 25 minutes, we say we're 25 minutes away. It's perspective, eh? We get upset when we have to drive an extra 10 minutes.
Exactly, and that's what happened. Sudbury has got a tremendous future. We have to capitalize on it. We have to build a team. We have to have the leadership necessary to make sure that we're going to be doing that. So it's, again, it's all a combination of people wanting to work together, and as a leader, you have to make sure that you can bring that team together, that you can bring them to consensus, that you can build consensus around the table, and that we are going to flourish. We have to be the voice of Northern Ontario, something we're not now.
I've been doing some research on just the businesses in Valley East, for example, and trying to, because I'm developing a directory, and I am totally amazed at some of the businesses that are listed, because some of them you haven't heard about them, but others you know are international in scope. And it seems as if this technology that we've developed in Sudbury, we have a pretty good technology infrastructure in Sudbury. I think a number of years back, you may have been around it, when the city did some investing in the computer and the high-speed infrastructure. And so you must be seeing that pay off now with.
Yeah. But again, this was a brainchild of Jim Gordon's, and we were severely criticized for investing huge amounts of money, but that investment is paying off, and it will continue to pay off for forever and ever. I mean, it's definitely something that was needed. It's definitely something that we believed in, and we were able to provide that. So it created a number of jobs, and
Right.
those jobs are still going today. So.
Yeah, and I think when we take a look at the number of businesses, you probably have a better grasp of the number of businesses who have come into the area in the last few years. But we're growing our economic base at a time when it takes fewer and fewer people to run the economy. So we may be attracting a lot of businesses that are kind of branch offices, or they're being able to run with fewer people. The summer that we both got married, 1972, I'm sure that Valet, Inco back then, hired more summer students than they have working full-time for them right now. Like, those were the days when you had 20,000 full-time employees. You hired 3,600 high school students and university students. It was phenomenal, the number of people that you had working. Now, I'm sure, I don't know the exact, I'm sure there are fewer people working full-time than we actually hired as summer students back when I was going to university. And yet, all of the economic development that we're dealing with now is really going toward this intellectual base and the education base. And you must be happy with the growth of the education sector in Sudbury. It's been huge.
And again, it takes investments. The School of Architecture is one that, we're all going to be able to hang our hats on, because it is a tremendous accomplishment. The first one to open in 42 years in Canada. The School of Medicine. I mean, that means so much to us and to all of Northern Ontario, because we have doctors from all over coming in, and they're going to say, okay, what a great place to live. And they're going to choose to practice, to set up their practice here. So that says a lot. And then, we have the two great colleges, and we have the university, and, all of them are showing great signs of increasing increasing registration. So that says a lot about our community, and we can't let that stop. I remember Frank Marsh, the late Frank Marsh, president of Cambrian College, telling us that for every out-of-town student that we were bringing into Sudbury, that student was bringing in $100,000 a year. So if you have, and we have international students coming from all over the world to study, either at a college or at the university, and at the School of Medicine, at the School of Architecture, we have worked hard. We have believed in our community. We've invested in our community as a council and as a community, and it's going to pay off for many years. But again, we have to have faith in our community, and others have to have faith in our community, and they have to see that we are progressing all the time in order for them to make a decision to come and base themselves in Sudbury, and we're doing that.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we'll conclude this interview, because I know that you and I, Ron, we could talk for hours, but we have to come to an end at some point, and obviously we will look forward to at least several other opportunities to talk to you on the show between now and October. All of the councillors and all of the people running for mayor have been told there's no limit to how often they can come on here. This is an education forum, so we are going to come back in about 2 or 3 minutes. This is the Learning Clinic on CKLU 96.7 FM. I am your host, Bob Kirwan, and in the studio today we have Ron Dupuis, who is running for mayor of City Council. We shall be back in about 4 or 5 minutes.
You are invited to participate in the first Sudbury Defeat Depression 2.
Welcome back to the Learning Clinic on CKLU 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Bob Kirwan, and we are going to conclude this afternoon's session, which is with Ron Dupuis, who's running for the position of mayor of the city of Greater Sudbury. Ron and I have been talking for well over an hour now on a number of different things, and Ron, just kind of concluding comments. I know that you and I both have a strong feeling for the, I guess, the involvement and the acceptance of everyone in the community for some ownership in the future of this community. And for my entire life, it's volunteers and people who have given of their time to help in their own specific little regions or their areas of interest that have really kept the community spirit alive. And without them, I don't know how any community could survive. And I know Sudbury is huge with volunteers, and you've done a lot of work with volunteers over the years. So before we go, if you have a chance to give us your perspective or your feelings about the use of volunteers going forward.
For sure. Well, we celebrated the National Volunteer Week a couple of weeks ago, and during that week, so many organizations and so many companies speak and honor volunteers that do tremendous work for our community. As you stated, I mean, when you think of the hours that people put in, whether it's flooding a rink or delivering meals to seniors or just giving rides to doctor's appointments or anything at all that volunteers do is just phenomenal. And in Greater Sudbury, we are so blessed to have so many volunteers that are not doing it for the glory, but just doing it because they care for one another and doing it not to be recognized, but just it's part of their fabric, it's part of what they want to do, and it's just truly amazing. And I'm always happy to go to volunteer events. In one day I attended 4 different volunteer events, and I can tell you, you see so many people, and the age difference is so varied. You have people that are 8 years old and are doing things for pets, and you have people who are in their almost 90 years old who are bringing the newspaper in their apartment complexes to their neighbors so that they know that they can't get out of their apartments. And you know, all of these things is what makes Greater Sudbury what it is. We are a proud community. We are a strong community. We are a community of volunteers, and not enough can be said. And how do you say thank you? Wishing all of the volunteers to continue doing what they do, because they do have a significant role to play, and they do improve the quality of life of everyone they touch. So we can't do that enough. We can't express our gratitude. So again, volunteers are what makes us special.
Yeah. And I think you and I have both done our share of volunteering. I probably haven't done as much as I should have, but I do know that you can sense when you say thank you, or when you smile, or when you just give acknowledgement of what a volunteer has done, what it does to It just, they don't need much. Like you say, most of the volunteers, they don't do it for recognition. Some of them are actually embarrassed when you give them recognition, but just saying, you know, I really appreciate what you did. Or, you know, what you did for that person was really, really nice. That's all you need. And I think if there's anything that any of us who maybe don't volunteer enough, on our own and give our hours is we don't give enough appreciation to the people who do find the time. And that's all you have to do, is say, you know what, I wish I could have given some time, but I really think that what you did was nice. And that, you can't pay people enough when you give that kind of recognition. And so, attending their events, when they put on an event and they plan something and people come to it, that's all the thanks that they want, that they've actually done something that makes a difference. I don't wanna leave here before we have a chance to talk about, you know, what it is that you feel you bring to the table as mayor, because I've told many people, you know, I'm not running against any candidate in this election. I'm running for Ward 5. I'm running for the people. In other words, I am a choice. I'm giving people a choice. So in terms of mayor, is there anything you can kind of expand upon? Is the choice you're giving people?
Well, I am, and I'm offering something different. I'm offering experience. I'm offering leadership. You know, over the years, my colleagues have elected me deputy mayor on a number of occasions, and there's a reason for that. When I always try to get consensus. I always, you know, when it comes to councillors and the mayor, you don't have to agree on everything. But at the end of the night, what you have to do is make sure that a decision has been made, and it is what the majority of council has decided. And we have to live with that decision. Whether you agree with the decision or not is irrelevant. The majority has spoken, and that's what you have to trust and respect. I will bring again to council, I'm gonna bring the fact that everybody is going to be heard, everybody is going to be respected. Our council is going to be one where we are going to be available to the people. You know, we're going to be going out and meeting people in their communities. We're going to have some public input sessions. I'm going to be present at the community service centers. And I'm going to be available for, you know, a few hours, and we're gonna listen to what people have to say. They're gonna be invited, they're gonna be able to come and talk to me, and we're gonna listen. This is what it's all about, is making sure that Greater Sudbury has its voice back. And I'm gonna do that. I'm going to make sure that my colleagues understand how important it is. I'm gonna make sure that, you know, we are a team, that we have to work with staff, that staff has to work with council, that staff and council has to work with the mayor, and the mayor has to work with staff and council. We're all part of a group, we're all part of a team, and again, we have to make sure that the decisions we make are the right ones. So I'm looking forward to coming back, Bob. I really enjoyed myself here today. I know that there's a lot of issues that we haven't touched upon, such as seniors and a multitude of others, transit, and again, you know, handy transit. There's so many issues that need to be talked about, and I will come back and anytime you invite me, and you know, I wouldn't mind having people calling in and asking questions and so on. I think it's a great forum, and I'm happy that I was able to be a part of it today.
No, I'm really glad you were able to come in. We are going to be video recording our radio interviews, so that we will be keeping an archive, so that when we do get into, I guess, round 2, or get into you know, the summer months and the fall, we'll be able to have sessions where we're on specific topics. We might do a half an hour just on seniors, and like you say, we might bring in a few people open up the lines for some call-ins, so that we can develop an archive of information and issues. And I'm personally looking forward to keeping that, so that over the next 4 years, this becomes like a library of issues that we can even return to and say, well, these are issues that were discussed by people, and let's listen to what they said again. It wasn't a political debate. It's not a meet the candidate debate where you're trying to put each other down. We're gonna have a discussion, and we're gonna listen to what people are saying about the issues. And so everything that we're doing here, to me, is developing a curriculum that can be used moving forward. And so the more candidates for council that come in, even the ones that don't get elected, we can keep their information online, and it becomes something that we can refer to as elected councilors time and time again. So today was a good start. I think we covered a lot of areas, but like you say, we could be here for hours covering each specific issue. But I think in terms of setting the groundwork and giving people an idea of just what it takes to move forward in a leadership capacity, regardless of whether you're a ward councillor or a mayor, there's certain philosophical principles that have to be adopted around that table. I think that we covered a lot, and it's been great. It's been a good show. So again, thank you for being here, and thank you for listening. And I just want to remind everybody that if you go to thelearningclinic.ca, you can get a schedule of who's coming on the show at any given week, but you can also find the links to the videos of the program. And I know that a number of the councillors and possibly Ron will be doing the same thing. They're going to be using different clips from the video, possibly on their own website, so they can expand further upon the issues. It's all about education. It's all about information. I think too often we forget that the people who probably need the most education are the voters, who have the least amount of knowledge of what it takes to run this city. And glad you could find time to come in, and we are looking forward to having everybody in and having you in many more times in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. So stay tuned to the Learning Clinic on CKLU 96.7 FM. We will take a break and be back later.
That was good.